Well, I'm sitting here with Eric E. Cohen, one of our long-term friends here at MACPA, and one of the co-founders of XBRL. Eric's been featured in several of our webcasts, Second Life, and just been all around helping us get our arms around this XBRL thing. So, you know, Eric, last year you were at our expo. We expect hopefully you'll be back again this year. And last year the big event was June was the first time public companies, first 500 I believe, were required to file with XBRL.
That's right. Those the interactive data mandate said that starting June 15th, 2009, those companies that had the global public float in excess of $5 billion, so around 500 companies had to start doing their first mandatory interactive data, aka XBRL filings with the SEC.
So now they've had pretty much 2 quarters, going on 3, right, of filing. So what are we seeing? What kind of things are you seeing, and where are the challenges with that group?
Yeah, we've seen those 500 companies, and believe it or not, another 50 or so that didn't have to file until year 2 or even year 3 have started doing their filings. We've seen the Qs, we've seen some Ks come through, so some annual reports as well. As you might expect, as we were doing this roll-in, we had the taxonomies, the business dictionaries that people had to use. The 2009 taxonomy came out a little bit late, so a bunch of companies were able to use the 2008 for their first filing. But for that second filing, the third quarter, just about everyone was up to speed on the 2009 taxonomy. You know, I think in a lot of ways it exceeded people's expectations. People thought that folks weren't going to understand the concept, but they were out there. They were able to do it. A lot more people did wind up using third parties that maybe even thought that they were going to do it themselves. So lots of reliance on third parties, but they were out there. They did it pretty much on time. The kinds of errors that they could have made, well, you know, there's some issues. They forgot to do some of the sections. The rules say you got to do the face of the financials, you got to do your notes in broad strokes, you have to do your supplemental schedules in broad strokes, and some of them forgot to do those supplemental schedules. I think we're going to see some more coming back on that. But, you know, just for something that's this new, I think a really, really great job. They had to cope with something called the Edgar Filer Manual. 200 really, really technical rules, and people were able to find their way through that, whether it's the consultants, the filing agents, really brought people together. And you go to the SEC's website, you look at that RSS feed, you'll see the results, a lot of stuff. Once the big boulders are out of the way, you start to see the smaller issues, and the SEC and their exploration, and the firms, the XBRL International and XBRL US, as they're helping people understand what's going on, should be able to see these things getting better and better.
Okay. And now, so as this group goes into year 2, a lot more requirements now, right? So June 15 of 2010, tell us a little bit about what they can expect as they move into year 2.
Right, so we do have that phase in. As you said, we had the 500 or so companies starting June 15th, 2009. We have another 1,500 who are joining them June 15th, 2010, and another group bringing it up to around 10,000 filers starting June 15th, 2011. So we've got all these people, and that means, number one, that the resources that have been honed and come up to speed for the 500, well, everyone's going to have to be working that much harder to come up with the new group doing that first-year filing. First-year filing meant that you had to do, as I said, every number on the face of the financials, the notes, supplemental schedules, and broad strokes. We've got the year 2, 1,500 people are going to be exploring this, smaller companies, maybe less resources, relying more on third parties, possibly. So a big strain on resources, that's sort of a good thing. Everyone's coming up to speed. But those first-year filers, the group that came in June 15, 2009, they had to tag, let's call it 300 to 500 numbers on the face of the financials, plus the big blocks of text. In year 2, those numbers are maybe 5 to 10 times as many, because now they have to do what they call type 2, 3, 4 types of tagging. They have to take every note and find every number within the notes, tag those numbers individually. Even if the number is spelled out, THIRTY 30, that's a number that's spelled out. every table, everything that has rows and columns, broken out individually, and all the numbers within those as well. So from 300 to 500 concepts in that June 15th, 2009 style, that 500 companies now has to do 3,000 to 5,000 different items. On top of the fact that there's just the sheer volume, they're going to now be tagging some things that are more likely not to be found in the standard taxonomy. If you look at people's notes to the financial statement, you're going to find some very serious things that are very specific to a company, especially, for example, in the commitments and contingencies section. So you're going to find that companies are going to have to be extending the taxonomy even more than ever before, and that's adding new levels of sophistication. And on top of that, now that they're doing this detailed style tagging, there is in the US GAAP taxonomy approximately 220 to 250 tables, and it uses something, a technology called dimensions. Didn't have to do that an awful lot in the first year, and it's something that's very untested. It's going to be a great thing. It's going to allow people to communicate things to the market in a way they never did before. But again, untested, very complex, sophisticated words that CPAs don't necessarily use in their everyday environment, like hypercube. They're going to have to start working on now. So the dimensions brings a new dimension, if you will, to the year 2 filing.
Okay. And then, so those small companies, any tips or things that they should look out for as they move, explore this first thing, given that they've got more limited resources and those kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. For small companies, they're going to be able to take those lessons from the first-year companies, the companies who said you can't start too early to try and look at the concepts in your financial statement, figure out what you need to report, learn about the taxonomy, learn how to map between your concepts and those. They need to figure out, can they come up to speed? Again, the software options are growing. The folks who are out there who are able to provide third-party services are growing. So being able to make those assessments, do they want to do it themselves, rely on third parties? Companies have learned how to make sure they've got a good service level agreement with the third parties. Make sure you understand the workflow. When you do things internally, you can be a little bit more, asynchronous and do things in an iterative fashion. When you're working with third parties, you're going to have a much more rigid workflow, and you have to make sure that you can deal with the timing and just the compression of time. You have to do your filings, your traditional filings, along with your XBRL filings, other than the first year 30-day grace period, the second year 30-day grace period. You have to do them pretty much concurrently. And people do like to make those changes right up to the last minute, and you have to be able to come up to make sure that you have all the quality in place to make sure your XBRL and your traditional filings are ready to go with the kind of quality you want.
Some great tips. Thank you for giving us this. We'll be keeping people up to date as we go. So Eric, thank you very much.
Thank you.